There comes a moment in every parent's life when something shifts. After decades of guiding, nurturing, and sacrificing for your children, you suddenly find yourself on unfamiliar ground. Perhaps they dismiss your advice with an eye roll. Maybe they speak to you with impatience, or make decisions without considering your input. Or worst of all, they make you feel like you've become a burden rather than the pillar of strength you once were. This reversal of roles cuts deep, doesn't it? Your first instinct might be to remind them of all you've sacrificed, to demand the respect you deserve. But here's what most parents discover too late. Confrontation rarely works. In fact, it often pushes your children further away. What if there was a different approach? One that doesn't involve arguments, guilt trips, or damaged relationships. Today, I'll share 6 powerful strategies that can transform how your adult children see and treat you, without a single confrontation. If you're experiencing this painful shift, please share your city in the comments below and hit that subscribe button. You're not alone in this journey, and together, we'll discover how to reclaim the respect you deserve. Now, let's begin with the most counterintuitive yet effective strategy of all. Action 1. Stop chasing their approval. One of the most painful habits we develop as aging parents is trying too hard to please our adult children. Does this sound familiar? You rearrange your schedule when they can finally fit you in. You keep your opinions to yourself to avoid rocking the boat. You say yes when you really want to say no. You walk on eggshells hoping that if you're accommodating enough, they'll finally appreciate you. I want you to hear this truth. The more desperately you chase their approval, the less they'll respect you. Dr. Margaret Paul, a relationship expert with over 50 years of experience, explains that respect isn't earned through self-sacrifice. It's earned through self-respect. When you constantly bend over backward to please your children, you're unintentionally teaching them that your feelings, your time, and your boundaries don't matter. I remember Barbara, a 68-year-old former teacher from Ohio. For years after her husband passed, she became what she called the ultimate people pleaser with her 3 adult children. She never refused a request to babysit, even when she was exhausted. She never expressed her true opinions about their life choices. She even pretended to enjoy activities she hated just to spend time with them. I thought I was being a good mother, Barbara told me. But the more I gave, the less they seemed to value what I offered. They started treating me like I was just there to serve their needs. Barbara's turning point came during a conversation with a friend who noticed how her children spoke to her. That night, Barbara made a decision. She would start respecting her own needs first. The next time her daughter asked her to babysit when she was tired, Barbara simply said, "I'm sorry, but I need to rest tonight. I'd be happy to help another time." To her surprise, her daughter didn't get angry. She actually apologized for not noticing how tired her mother looked. If you want your children to respect you, start by respecting yourself. Set boundaries. Speak your truth kindly, but firmly. Value your time and needs. Your children will notice, and slowly but surely, they'll start seeing you differently. Not as someone desperate for their approval, but as someone worthy of their respect. Action 2. Build a life outside of them. Let me ask you something important. When was the last time you did something just for yourself? Something that had nothing to do with your children or grandchildren. One of the most powerful ways to regain your children's respect is to show them that your happiness doesn't revolve around them. This might sound counterintuitive, especially if you've spent decades putting your family first. But think about the people you respect most in your life. Aren't they individuals with their own passions, interests, and sense of purpose? Gerontologist Dr. Sarah Johnson explains, when parents make their adult children the sole focus of their lives, it often creates an unhealthy dynamic. Children may feel burdened by being the center of someone else's universe. While parents feel disappointed when children can't fulfill all their social and emotional needs. Dorothy, a 72-year-old widow from Florida, experienced this firsthand. After her husband died, she poured all her energy into her children's lives, calling them daily, offering unsolicited advice, and expecting them to fill the void her husband left behind. "I was suffocating them," Dorothy admits now. "They'd screen my calls. When we did talk, the conversations were short and strained. I felt more alone than ever." Everything changed when Dorothy reluctantly joined a watercolor class at her local community center. She discovered a talent she never knew she had. Soon she was attending art shows, making new friends, and even selling her paintings at local craft fairs. "The most surprising thing happened," Dorothy told me with a smile. "My children started calling me more. They were genuinely interested in my paintings, my new friends, my upcoming shows. They started seeing me as a whole person again, not just their needy mom." Start small. Join a book club. Take a class. Volunteer for a cause you care about. Reconnect with old friends or make new ones. Find something that lights you up and pursue it with passion. When your children see you living a rich, fulfilling life that doesn't depend on their attention, they'll start viewing you with newfound respect. They'll see you as someone with purpose and joy, someone they want to spend time with, not someone they feel obligated to check in on. I'd love to hear from you. What passion or interest have you put aside that you might revisit? Share in the comments below, and let's inspire each other to build lives that are fulfilling, regardless of how our children respond. Action 3. Set boundaries and enforce them. One of the most difficult truths to accept as parents is this: your children will treat you exactly how you allow them to be treated. If you permit disrespectful behavior, interruptions, dismissive comments, or outright rudeness, it will continue and likely worsen over time. Setting boundaries isn't about creating conflict. It's about teaching others how to treat you with dignity. Family therapist Dr. James Coleman puts it this way: healthy boundaries aren't walls. They're guidelines that protect your self-respect while still allowing for loving relationships. Thomas, a 76-year-old retired professor from Massachusetts, struggled with this after his retirement. His 3 adult children, all successful professionals, began treating family gatherings like business meetings where they could talk over him, dismiss his opinions, and even mock his outdated perspectives. "At first, I just took it," Thomas confessed. "I told myself they were busy, stressed with their own families. I didn't want to rock the boat. But each time I stayed silent, I felt smaller, less significant in their lives." The turning point came during a Sunday dinner when his son interrupted him mid-sentence for the 3rd time. Instead of shrinking back, Thomas calmly put down his fork, looked directly at his son, and said, "I'd like to finish my thought without being interrupted." The table fell silent. His son apologized, and Thomas continued speaking. It was a small moment, but it marked a profound shift. Over the next few months, Thomas established clear boundaries. When his daughter rolled her eyes at his suggestion, he gently said, "I notice you seem dismissive of my idea. I'd appreciate being heard, even if you disagree." When his children made plans without considering his schedule, he simply said, "That timing doesn't work for me. Here's when I'm available." The key to Thomas's success wasn't just setting boundaries, it was consistently enforcing them. He didn't yell or lecture. He simply, calmly stated what was and wasn't acceptable, then followed through. The respect didn't come overnight, Thomas shared. But gradually they started listening more, interrupting less, and treating me like someone whose thoughts and feelings mattered. What boundaries do you need to set with your adult children? Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect, and sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for both yourself and your children, is to show them how. Action 4. Don't argue. Lead by example. When your adult child dismisses your opinion or speaks to you disrespectfully, what's your first instinct? If you're like most parents, you probably want to argue back, to remind them of everything you've done, to demand the respect you deserve. But I want to share something that might save you years of frustration. Arguing for respect never works. Never. Think about it. When was the last time someone convinced you to respect them by arguing with you? Respect isn't won through words. It's earned through presence, through how you carry yourself, especially in difficult moments. Dr. Lisa Firestone, a clinical psychologist specializing in family relationships, explains, when parents react emotionally to disrespect, they unintentionally reinforce the power imbalance. The child learns they can easily provoke an emotional reaction, which actually diminishes respect further. William, a 70-year-old retired teacher from Illinois, learned this the hard way. For years, he'd spent family gatherings trying to prove his relevance to his 3 adult children. When they dismissed his advice about finances, he'd list his accomplishments. When they ignored his political opinions, he'd raise his voice to be heard. "I was fighting for a seat at the table," William told me. "But the harder I fought, the less they seemed to listen." Everything changed when William's doctor recommended meditation for his blood pressure. Through this practice, William learned to pause before reacting. When his son made a dismissive comment about William's technology skills, instead of defending himself, William simply nodded and said, "You might be right. Would you have time this weekend to show me a better way?" The change in his son's demeanor was immediate. Instead of the usual eye-rolling, his son seemed almost surprised by William's calm response. That weekend, they spent 2 hours together, and for the first time in years, his son actually listened to William's perspective on other matters. "I realized I'd been trying to command respect through words," William reflected. "Now I earn it through my presence, by staying calm, by listening more than speaking, by carrying myself with dignity even when I'm challenged." This doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It means responding to disrespect with such self-assurance that your children start questioning their own behavior, not yours. The next time your child speaks disrespectfully, try this. Take a deep breath. Maintain eye contact. Speak slowly and calmly. Don't defend or explain yourself. Simply model the respect you wish to receive. Your dignity will speak volumes more than your words ever could. Has anyone tried this approach with their adult children? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. Action 5. Withdraw your emotional dependence. One of the most difficult truths we face as we age is this: we cannot depend on our adult children for our emotional well-being. The moment they sense that your happiness hinges on their attention, calls, or visits, something shifts in the relationship, and rarely for the better. Dr. Karen Sullivan, a psychologist specializing in aging, explains, when parents become emotionally dependent on their adult children, it creates an unhealthy dynamic. The children feel an implicit pressure that often leads to resentment, while the parents experience constant disappointment when children can't meet their emotional needs. Patricia, a 69-year-old retired nurse from Arizona, found herself in this painful cycle after her husband passed away. Her 2 adult daughters became the center of her emotional world. She'd call them multiple times a day, feel devastated when they didn't answer, and analyze their tone of voice for signs of annoyance or affection. "I was always waiting," Patricia recalled, waiting for their calls, waiting for their visits, waiting for them to fill the emptiness I felt. And the more I waited, the more they seemed to pull away. Patricia noticed that her daughters' calls became shorter. Their visits became less frequent. They started making excuses about being busy. What Patricia didn't realize was that her emotional dependence was creating a burden her daughters couldn't carry. The turning point came through an unexpected source: a grief support group Patricia joined at her local community center. There she met others who were rebuilding their lives after loss. Through their encouragement, Patricia began developing emotional resources that didn't depend on her children. She started a daily gratitude practice. She formed friendships with people in her age group who understood her experiences. She volunteered at a local hospital, using her nursing skills to help others. Most importantly, she learned to sit with her difficult emotions instead of immediately reaching for the phone to call her daughters. The most surprising thing happened, Patricia shared. When I stopped needing my daughters to make me feel better, our relationship improved. They started calling me more often, and when we talked, they were genuinely interested in my life, not just checking a box. This doesn't mean disconnecting from your children. It means building an emotional life that's rich and fulfilling, whether they call today or not. It means finding joy in your own experiences, developing friendships with peers, and creating meaning that doesn't depend on your children's validation. When you show your children that you're emotionally self-sufficient, they'll stop seeing you as a responsibility and start seeing you as a person they want to connect with, not because you need them, but because they need you. Action 6. Stop giving without appreciation. Think about something you've done recently for your adult children. Maybe you watch the grandkids on short notice. Perhaps you help them financially during a tight month. Or maybe you're still doing their taxes, mending their clothes, or cooking meals when they visit. Now ask yourself, was your generosity met with genuine appreciation? Or has it become expected, even taken for granted? One of the fastest ways to lose respect is to continue giving to people who don't value what you offer. When generosity becomes routine, it stops being seen as a gift and starts being seen as an obligation. Dr. Robert Emmons, a leading gratitude researcher, explains, "Unacknowledged generosity often leads to resentment in the giver and entitlement in the receiver. A toxic combination that damages relationships over time." Michael, a 74-year-old retired accountant from Texas, experienced this with his 3 adult children. For years after their mother passed away, he became what he called the family ATM and handyman. He helped with down payments on houses, fixed their cars, and watched their children whenever asked. "At first, they were grateful," Michael explained. "But over time, my help became expected. If I couldn't babysit because I had plans, they acted disappointed. If I suggested they hire a plumber instead of waiting for me to drive across town, they seemed annoyed." The breaking point came when Michael's son called at 11 p.m., asking him to watch the grandchildren early the next morning because their regular sitter canceled. When Michael explained he had a doctor's appointment he couldn't miss, his son actually said, "Can't you reschedule? It's not like you have much else going on." That comment hit Michael hard. He realized his constant availability had led his children to see him as having no life of his own, and therefore no needs that ranked above theirs. Michael made a difficult but necessary change. He started being selective about when and how he helped. He didn't stop being generous, but his generosity became conditional on respect and appreciation. When his daughter asked for financial help with car repairs, Michael said, "I'd be happy to help, but I need you to create a repayment plan first." When his son needed childcare, Michael said, "I can watch the kids next Tuesday, but I need at least 3 days' notice in the future." The initial reaction was resistance. His children were used to unconditional giving, but gradually something shifted. They started saying thank you. They began acknowledging the sacrifice his help required. Most importantly, they stopped taking his generosity for granted. "Now when I help, it feels different," Michael shared. "It feels like a choice I'm making, not an expectation I'm fulfilling. And strangely enough, they seem to value my help more now that it's not automatically guaranteed." If your children have stopped appreciating your generosity, it might be time to make it less available. This isn't about withholding love. It's about teaching others to value what you offer. The path to regaining your children's respect isn't about changing them. It's about transforming how you show up in the relationship. By valuing yourself first, building a fulfilling, independent life, setting clear boundaries, leading by example, developing emotional self-sufficiency, and making your generosity conditional on appreciation, you create a new dynamic. This journey takes time and courage. There may be resistance at first, but as you consistently honor your own worth, something remarkable happens. Your children begin to see you differently. Which of these 6 strategies will you try first? Share in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on navigating family relationships with dignity and wisdom.